In a video number 7, under the Indian economy from 1950 to 1990, today we are going to discuss the foreign trade policy of India. When we look back to the pre-British period, we find India to be self-sufficient in all respects. We dealt with our exports in textiles, spices, silk, craft, jewelry, and so on. At that point of time, the GDP was 25% of the world's industrial output. And with an average income of 5 times the subsistence level. So you can imagine what the condition of India. That is why it is called the Sone ki Chidiya. Now, it had trade with foreign countries like the Dutch and other European countries like the French, Portugal, and Britain. But with the incoming of the British rule in India, the Britishers restricted 50% of the trade with Britain, and the rest 50% was with the other countries. And here we can see the India's share to world economy reduced from 24.4% to 4.2%, and the output from 25% to just 2% in the year 1900. At the time of independence, we were just reduced to a backward and a stagnant economy. It suffered colonial exploitation. It was reduced to a mere exporter of raw materials and a market for the British industrial goods. But after independence, we brought out a plan in which the farm products were used for our domestic industries as raw materials. Then the manufactured goods like gems, precious metals, and machinery and vehicles were exported. Then trade with other countries like UAE, China, USA, Switzerland, Singapore, Australia, Japan, Belgium, etc. We could trade with these foreign countries. So trade increased. After independence, the volume, composition, direction of trade changed. But what happened was we found that the imports were greater than exports. Now what? What will happen to the domestic industries after independence? We know we had a debt in the export. We had taken loans which we could not repay. Then what policy did we adopt? Let us see. Now, in the first 7 plans, foreign trade was characterized by what is commonly called as inward-looking trade strategy, otherwise called import substitution. Since we were a developing country and we did not have enough foreign reserves, we understand that import was not possible for us. So, as a result, what happened was the domestic industries needed to be protected from foreign competition. Right? So, what is this inward looking trade strategy or import substitution? It is to replace or substitute the imported goods or the foreign goods with domestic goods. So, what did we do for that? We placed tariffs on the imported goods. What does tariff do? Tariff would make the imported goods more expensive and hence discourage their use. Then we also had this quotas which specified the quantity of goods imported. So this way we could protect the domestic firms from foreign competition. However, this strategy had some positive effects as well as some drawbacks. So we are going to look into those now. With import substitution, the GDP increased from 11.8% in 1950 to 24.6% in 1990-91. So this is definitely an indicator of development. Industries diversified. No longer was Indian industry restricted to cotton, textiles and jute. It became well diversified by 1990 due to the public sector. Then small scale industries were promoted, and this gave an opportunity to those people who did not have enough capital to start with their large firms and get into business. Indigenous industries in electronics and automobile sectors also developed. Had we not taken up this inward trade strategy or import substitution, the electronic industry would have failed to take roots in the domestic economy. Also, the automobile industry is ascribed to the inward looking trade strategy. Exposed to international competition, these industries would have failed to survive. Now, there were some drawbacks to this import substitution or inward looking trade strategy. What were they? The inefficient functioning of the public sector. The public sectors became a monopoly till about 1990, and these incurred huge losses but still continued to function. Now, one cannot forget the telecommunication, which was a government monopoly. People had to wait for years and years just for one telephone connection. But today, you get repeated SMS, that keeps offering us new telephone connections, and that too for free of charge. And these continued to produce goods and services that no longer were required. So much so that bread and shoes were produced by the public sector units, which could very well be given to the private sector. The examples of the public sector units during that time was telecom industry, national defense, and hotels. Hotels and all have been privatized after the new economic policy in 1991. Then the excessive regulation of industries, that was called as the license Raj. To get a license to start a company or an industry, this prevented certain firms from becoming more efficient. Then the bigger industrialists prevented others from getting, a license. This was only to prevent the competitors from starting new firms so that they can prevent the competitors. Then there was no incentive was given to improve the quality of products in the absence of foreign competitors. Due to restriction on imports, the Indian consumers had to purchase whatever the Indian producers produce, that is, the domestic industries produced. And the producers were very well aware that they had a captive market, so that they had no incentive to improve the quality of their goods. Then why should one think of improving the quality when they could sell low quality items at a higher price? So competition from import, forces our producers to be more efficient. So owing to all these, the economists called for a change in our policy. So along with the other problems, this led the government to introduce a new economic policy in 1991.